screen starts glowing, and the film starts rolling. You wanna be knowing what you might be in for. So give the show a listen and find out what you're missing. Put yourself in position for the easy good score.
Hey listeners, welcome to the 237th episode of The Goods, a film podcast. Brian, it's our first episode of 2026, although I think it'll be the second one released this year because I haven't quite finished editing the Grinch-isode.
Yeah, Dan, we've been doing this for the last 5 years.
More than, but that's true. That's a good point. The film that we are going to be discussing today is an adaptation of an off-Broadway musical entitled The Last 5 Years, released in 2014. This is sort of an impressionistic, sad, romantic memoir of a musical. And I've been curious about this one since I heard about it. I think it kind of came and went without much noise when it was released. I haven't really heard anyone ever bring this up in just casual conversation the last 5 years.
Yeah, I'm very curious how this crossed your radar. So the film was 2014. I guess the original stage production was 2001. And I don't know that the stage production ran very long. The movie release, it said the budget was $2 million and the box office was like $145,000.
Wow.
So not a big splash.
No, but that's still a pretty low budget too. So this film is, like you said, an adaptation of a stage musical from, what year did you say it came out? What was it?
I think it was 2001. The author was Jason Robert Brown, and it becomes clear pretty early on that it's autobiographical. So I want to talk about our perception of these two central characters with the perspective that the dude is writing it.
So another musical, it occurred to me as I was watching that we just discussed Sweeney Todd not even 2 months ago, you know?
This is a very different vibe from Sweeney Todd.
Well, it is. There's some similarities, though. Namely that it's sung through mostly. And it's downbeat, like Sweeney Todd, but in different ways. No cannibalism in this one.
Right. So this is much more a, like, musical verite. I don't know. It's so weird to me to see a musical that is this, like, down to earth and involved with realistic one-to-one events of daily life.
Right. So we should just go ahead and say what the premise is. So the premise is a rise and a fall of a relationship, but told with a very peculiar structure. So it's essentially a two-hander. I'm not even sure anyone else gets spoken lines. There might be like a character who says one or two lines, but it's basically just a two-hander, just these two people. And I think that's the way that it was done on Broadway, is just two actors, or maybe two actors and plus dancers or extras or whatever. But these two characters are Kathy and Jamie. So Jamie, it could be a man's name or a woman's name. In this case, it's the man's name. And the structure of this is tracks a 5-year relationship, and it starts at the end from Kathy's perspective. And so we know from the start that, I guess we don't necessarily 100% know that this is going to be the last chronological thing. It felt kind of obvious to me, especially as it started jumping around, that we had witnessed the dissolution, the ultimate dissolution of this romance. But we get alternating scenes. It's a little confusing. So Kathy starts at the end and goes backwards in time towards the beginning of the relationship. Meanwhile, Jamie starts at the beginning of the relationship and then goes forward in time to end at the end of the relationship. And so there's like a couple of scenes in the middle that are duets where they've kind of crossed timelines, crossed streams, and we kind of get both of their perspective. But I think the idea is that we're getting the perspective of each of them at each phase of the relationship told in different chronological orders. So it's kind of a complex chronological structure.
Yeah. And the person singing each song is like you're getting their perspective. So once we cross the halfway point, we're seeing scenes we've seen before, but from the other character's perspective.
And Kathy is played by Anna Kendrick, and Jamie is played by Broadway actor, occasional screen actor, Jeremy Jordan. We have talked Anna Kendrick on this podcast, Brian, once before. We have talked Anna Kendrick in 2014 on this podcast once before, Brian. Do you remember that?
Yes, it was that Christmas movie that I didn't like.
Right. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas, where she was like the directionless, rudderless sibling crashing on her brother's couch or something, and like parties a lot. Found her much more sympathetic here, although she's also struggling here.
And this is, from what I've read, it's a pretty faithful adaptation of the stage musical. It adapts, I think, almost all of the numbers, and at least just based on what I was reading, and the same structure.
So I want to talk a little bit about nonlinear storytelling.
Yeah, same.
So have you seen other films or TV presentations that use this specific structure where one person's going forwards and one person's going backwards?
Yes, sort of. The film Memento. Have you seen Memento?
Okay, I have not seen Memento. My understanding was this is how Memento works, right?
Right, except it's the same guy, but the thing is, he has short-term memory loss following a traumatic injury. And it's kind of an interesting hook because the traumatic injury came as his home was being invaded and the home invader killed his wife. So his last memory is like all the time. The most recent thing that's happened to him is him witnessing his wife dying. So he's in this constant state of wanting revenge, wanting, and just like anger and angst. And we get a lot of kind of details about him and about the event and about his attempt to discover it. And it's very fascinating because we see some scenes that are in the past. Well, I mean, at the beginning chronologically, and then at the end chronologically, and then they kind of go backwards in time and meet at the middle, and the middle has some key revelations. So it's kind of got a twisty ending, even though we've already seen like what is hypothetically the ending. So I was thinking a lot of Memento, a couple others too, but it sounds like you have one on your mind, Brian.
Well, yeah, my sense was that Memento worked that way. I gotta watch it. There's an episode of Venture Brothers that does this. There's an episode of Seinfeld that was specifically aping Memento, but I think just went backwards. I don't think there was a plot line going forwards at the same time. I think this is a lot. There was a time I used to work at an escape room, and I'd like work the night shift, and if people didn't escape, you're supposed to go in and like explain what still needed to be done. And one night there was this drunk guy doing it and didn't get to the end, and I was going in and explaining all the stuff still left to do. He says, "This is a lot." And with a vibe that I felt like he was about to punch me in the face. Like he seemed really irritated. And there were parts early on in this movie where I was thinking, doesn't need to be doing all this.
I think it's a good point, and I think with at least what we get in the film, I'm not sure how much is gained. Like I didn't feel like I understood it more when we got the beginning from one character's perspective and the end from the other character's perspective. It was like, okay, it's basically like the mirror image of what we already knew. But I guess like, okay, Anna Kendrick starts the movie sad, and then it ends with Jeremy Jordan deciding to make Anna Kendrick sad. Okay, like, wow. I mean, I guess I could have guessed that, you know?
Yeah.
And then Jeremy Jordan is happy at the beginning, and then at the end, Anna Kendrick's happy at the beginning of the relationship. Okay.
Right. I thought the very end was the most effective, and it's like, oh, maybe I can appreciate now why they did it this way. but we'll talk some more about it. When it was most a problem for me is towards the middle of the film, the timelines are coming together, and so they're closer together in time, and it was hard at some of the moments for me to keep track of what happened previous and what still has to happen, and it was running together for me.
Yeah, I agree. Although I did feel like the middle, it occurred to me that like this, it really isn't that interesting of an arc of their relationship. Like it kind of is. Like there's not too many twists or ups or downs. A couple other comparisons. So have you seen 500 Days of Summer, Brian?
Haven't seen that either.
Okay, so that to me in some ways is like the closest comparison to this one, because the idea of that one is it opens with the main character basically saying, this is not a love story. It's about, he says, this is not a love story. And then we bounce around through 500 days with his relationship with a girl named Summer. And then at the very end, we see them break up. But it does a thing where it'll tell you what day number out of 500 days it was. So it has kind of the same hopping back and forth effect of this, but also like the thing where it tells you at the beginning that it's sad ending, that they don't end up together. And then it like spends the whole movie showing you their romance together and then ending back up at the breakup. So you feel, I guess, a little bit sadder about it. And you kind of see the way the highs and the lows have kind of pieced into that.
And 5 years is a pretty long time. You know, that's like 1,500 days of summer. So, Dan, we kind of bounced over. How did you become aware of this one?
Yeah. So I want to talk about that. So that's good. I mainly just saw it on Letterboxd. I think I was looking at Jeremy Jordan's filmography, and I saw this was, I think, the most logged thing on Letterboxd. He doesn't have a whole lot of movie credits. And I clicked on it, and at first I didn't realize it was a musical until I read a couple of the comments. I was like, oh, but because I was thinking, like, was this his attempt to break out into movies, and it flopped? But like, why would he choose this random movie to do that? And it's like, oh, well, it's a musical. Okay, so that makes perfect sense, because he is one of the more successful male Broadway stars of the past 20 years. He's this booming tenor, just immensely charismatic and talented singer. And I want to talk a little bit about that. And I've become a little fascinated by him, mainly like watching videos of him perform, because he's so good at singing. Like, a couple of the videos I've seen of him performing are just like legitimately some of my favorite vocal performances that I've heard and witnessed. And they're like live, you know, it's like someone held up an iPhone watching this guy sing on a stage, and it's like giving you chills every single time, you know? So he's an interesting guy. He's a couple years older than us, Brian, but only a couple years older. And he broke out pretty young, like right out of college. He went to Broadway, and he immediately got cast and stuff. And then his big breakout was in the same year he got cast first as Clyde in the musical adaptation of Bonnie and Clyde. And he got some attention there. But then the big one was he was the first actor to play Jack, who is the Christian Bale character in Newsies, in the musical adaptation of Newsies.
Well, yes, Newsies is a musical, but the stage run of it.
Or the stage adaptation, right, yeah. The Broadway version.
Yep.
And from there, he got a Tony nomination for that. And then he's just kind of consistently been cast when you need like a charismatic, romantic tenor, you know? And now that's going on like 15 or 20 years. That's basically been his lane. He's tried some other stuff, but that's what sticks. He's done like a revival of Little Shop, and I think he's just awesome to watch sing. I think like last year or the year before, he finally cashed in and appeared in a Hallmark movie. So that might be his future.
Oh, okay. So doing the research for this week, yeah, I found the Little Shop run. I want to see now a team-up movie where he's in it and Milo Manheim is in it. But the one that blew my mind was like a one-man 15-minute performance where he is opening up about his involvement in the development of The Greatest Showman. And I had never heard any of this. So I guess the, like, Past Second Paul or somebody, the music team, brought him in to sing demo tracks of the Hugh Jackman songs. The songs intended for Hugh Jackman to sing because he's in a similar vocal range, I suppose. And so he laid down these tracks, and then they're like, hey, that was great. Come with us because we're going to do a press event on, mark your calendar for this day in New York. We're all going to be there and do this press event.
Well, just one thing to interject in this, and one thing that he kind of sets is that he knew that Hugh Jackman was in as the lead, and so he couldn't be cast as the lead, but he wanted to be play the assistant character who, as we have talked about, Greatest Showman, we know was not in fact him.
Was also not in fact a real person. Right.
Although he was kind of loosely matches Bailey.
Exactly.
From Barnum and Bailey. But anyways, and both what ultimately was the Zac Efron part and the Hugh Jackman part are like tenors who are like exactly the kinds of songs that Jeremy Jordan would sing.
Right. So I want to talk about how this video unfolds, which is that, yes, he says, well, they brought him in kind of on the bottom floor and to kind of be a grunt and a lackey, but with this possibility that maybe there's something more here. And, oh, they chose me, and maybe this is a project that has legs. Maybe this can go somewhere. And then, yeah, he finds out that there's this part that seems like it's made for him. Like, oh, okay, well, kind of tacitly, at least the way that he sees it, is this is going to be him. This invented, like, secondary role, this deuteragonist of young man who sings with Barnum. And so then the day grows close. We're going to be doing this presentation. But, by the way, Hugh Jackman has had, like, sinus surgery. So he's not going to be able to sing. So in addition to singing the Philip part, you're also going to be singing the Barnum part. Well, I guess Hugh Jackman is standing there. I don't know if he's lip syncing like Singing in the Rain, but that's how it's presented. And as he's talking about this, I remember that I had seen a video of the final part of this performance, because what ends up happening is everybody's been told, okay, well, Hugh Jackman is going to be there, but he's not going to sing because he has like a nose polyp cut out today. And as Jeremy Jordan tells it, he has also been struggling with laryngitis, but he has had the whole project fall on his shoulders now. It's like he's got to do everything. He has to be the one-man show, even though he's having difficulties of his own. And then at the finale, Hugh Jackman decides actually he is going to sing. He's not going to be one-upped. He is going to take the reins. And so then Jeremy Jordan is just completely sidelined. And then the next thing is, oh, and Zac Efron is in.
A bummer, yeah. And it was like the number is From Now On, which is just like a thermonuclear belter. Like, it's just, all the spotlight's on you when you're singing that one. So I found that very charming. I don't think I would want to be friends with Jeremy Jordan. When I hear him talk, he sounds a little like he's very theater kiddie. Like, you can tell that he's self-absorbed, but he's like performing not self-absorbed. He's funny, but he just gives me a little bit of theater kid smarm energy whenever I hear him talk. But obviously a talent. My two favorite Jeremy Jordan videos. So one is him doing Santa Fe, and I like the opening. He talks basically about how he was just a college kid trying to make it in Broadway. He just graduated college, and like really quickly, this kind of fell into his lap. And, his whole life he had been dreaming, like his whole childhood and young adulthood, he had been dreaming of being on Broadway. And kind of like it feels like he kind of missed the point of it because he got it pretty young and was enough of a talent to get noticed. But the moral that he was trying to say was like, I worked hard and I kept grinding and I got it. Although he got it kind of young. But anyways, it was kind of like a nice inspirational story. Like, anyone can work hard enough and achieve their dreams so long as you have the vocal talent of Jeremy Jordan. But then he goes on to sing Santa Fe, the Newsies song. and it's like he sings both the stage version, so the lyrics are a little rewritten, but if you only know the movie version, but the main version and then the reprise, and I mean it's an absolutely sensational performance of Santa Fe, and he gets like really emotionally into it, and I'll post that one in the Discord, which listeners can find us on thegoodsfilmpodcast.com. Come join us on the Discord. We'll be posting a couple of these clips. But my number one favorite Jeremy Jordan video is so 10 years ago in 2015, occasionally they do these little specials in Broadway, like a one night only type thing. And this one was called Broadway Loves Celine Dion. And so basically it's a bunch of Broadway stars going up on stage, probably like chatting a little bit, and then singing a Celine Dion song. And the one that he got tasked with is It's All Coming Back to Me Now, which is a terrific one. Obviously my favorite is My Heart Will Go On, but this is a great one. It was recently appeared in the movie Borderline from this year, which I found a pretty charming and bizarre crime movie. It's called Borderline. The premise of the movie, it's unrelated to the video I'm going to talk about, except that it features this song. But the premise of that movie is that this like crazy guy becomes convinced that this pop star is in love with him and that they're like soulmates. And so he plans this elaborate heist to break into the pop star's house and like basically stage their wedding. And so it's got this like black comic element because the main character is so deluded, and it's also got like a thriller element because we're fearing for the safety of the sympathetic pop star played by Samara Weaving. And it's just a funny and bizarre movie. It's got some really strange moments, but there's one moment when a character breaks out into It's All Coming Back to Me Now. That was my favorite moment of the movie.
Borderline is a really good title for that story.
Yeah. But anyways, okay, so the Jeremy Jordan video. So he goes up on stage and he likes to goof around on stage. He's like making silly faces and like hopping back and forth like he's nervous and like just making we don't get anything that preceded it, but I kind of imagine that he like told a silly story or like did a little anecdote or something. And then people are kind of like laughing and muttering to themselves in the audience. And then the piano comes in and then he sings the opening line. There were nights when the winds were so cold. And then like the room gets just silent. And you even hear a couple of people like, oh my God, like muttering. And he's just like belted it out so beautifully and so perfectly. And then for 7 minutes, he's like delivering this just all-time delivery of a transposed version of a Celine Dion. Obviously Celine Dion, very high-pitched singer, has been brought down to his range, but it sounds perfect in his range. And he does like a little silly affectations in the middle, but like at both at the beginning and the end, he's just absolutely selling the crap out of this song. And yeah, one of my favorite vocal performances I've ever heard. I'll post that video in the Discord. And like the top comments are along the lines of, this video has 2 million views, but I know it's just 200 of us watching this 10,000 times or something like that. And I kind of felt that way.
The one I saw as I was poking around was a version of Cell Block Tango from Chicago, but it was all well-known male Broadway leads in the women's roles. So it was Jeremy Jordan, Leslie Odom, the Dear Evan Hansen guy, Platt.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so like 6 guys of that stature, basically. So that was kind of funny.
Yeah. So a couple more thoughts just to close on Jeremy Jordan. He has a version. So you sent me like, there's like a complete stage recording of him on Little Shop, but I saw a clip of him just performing it, like not in costume, but with one of his co-singers. The song Suddenly Seymour. And Suddenly Seymour is ostensibly a duet, but Audrey is really the one who gets like the majority of the song. And it's just like again, it's for belting. It's like just got these kind of soaring melodies. But Seymour gets a couple of lines at the beginning, and then like a couple of moments he kind of comes in to like push Audrey's higher and higher as the song is building. And I watched this clip of it, and like, he's not the star of it. It's like this other singer. I think Betsy Wolf is her name or something like that. And like, he still steals the show. He's like so much. He's like just got so much charisma in his delivery of it, even though it's like not the focus of it. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. There's one I've seen of him doing like Disney princess medley when he's being cheeky about it because it's princess music, but it's him singing it. But you mentioned Dear Evan Hansen, and so I want to talk about something here, which is that it occurred to me like there aren't that many notable live action musicals that get made these days in film. I feel like there's a gap. And in particular, one movie whose name I don't think we've mentioned yet, but it's very much in conversation with this film, La La Land.
Yep.
In 2016, La La Land was a sensation, almost won Best Picture, beloved, millions of dollars, made Damien Chazelle. I mean, I guess he had already been a name because of Whiplash, but, he became one of the hottest names in Hollywood. Why weren't there like just a spat of original musicals trying to ape the La La Land success? Or like even adaptations. So there were a couple. They did Dear Evan Hansen, they adapted for screen.
And Greatest Showman came right after La La Land. That was 2017.
That's true, yeah. And it made a crap ton of money, too.
But, yeah, it's not something that happens a lot. Maybe it's ripe, but I think the returns vary as far as how much money they make when they do get made. I mean, this one, 5 years, didn't make a lot of money. But Greatest Showman did. I think Evan Hansen did respectably, but I'm not sure. But I definitely was thinking of La La Land the whole time I was watching this.
Yeah, there's one thing we haven't said about the movie yet is that the two leads are a novelist and an actress and their respective arcs. And like La La Land, there are times when one of them has success and one of them doesn't. But unlike La La Land, it's mainly just one has success and the other doesn't have success.
I was also thinking of Benjamin Button.
Okay.
Which, have you ever seen that one?
No.
So it's a little different because that one is very much like a fantasy story where Brad Pitt ages backwards. And so he starts life as an old man and then is getting younger as everybody around him is getting older. But here in this movie, we got one character presented as though they are moving forward in time and one person presented as though they are moving backward in time. And they aren't really, but that's how it's shown to us. But it's the same deal where they meet in the middle because Brad Pitt has a romance with Cate Blanchett and it starts out that he's older and she's younger. And then she's aging up and he's aging back, so they're getting closer together. And then there's this one stretch in the movie in the middle where they're the same age. And it's like the peak, this is their glowing golden time of life. But then they diverge again. And there's discussion of what if time ran backwards, which gets a song in this movie.
Yeah. I've decided, though, Brian, if I became like a billionaire, won the Mega Millions lottery, what I would do is I would start a production company and I would hire Broadway and off-Broadway composers to write original movie scores and then hire up-and-coming directors and just do like low to low medium budget productions of these musicals. And all you need is one to become a sensation. And you've paid for all of them. I feel like there's more room for gambles with musical composers out there.
I like that. Another one that came out in recent years was Tick, Tick, Boom with Andrew Garfield in the lead. And that one was also very kind of navel-gazy. It's like, I'm 30 years old and I want to write a musical. But what do I write a musical about? What if I write a musical about trying to write a musical when you're 30 and you haven't found your purpose?
Right. Yeah. I haven't seen that one. I think that one was an adaptation. I don't think that was an original. I'm not 100% sure.
No, that's true. But it was I guess Dear Evan Hansen was not either. So I haven't been following the plot that you laid down.
Well, I've been bouncing back and forth. I would see more Broadway adaptations too. And then I guess in 2021 we had Spielberg doing West Side Story, which feels like a different ballpark, but glad to see Spielberg doing a musical. It's kind of odd he's never done a musical. I think that was his first at least like book musical, like with lots of numbers.
I think so.
I didn't actually see that one yet, but it seems like a natural fit for him.
I saw that at some point Jeremy Jordan also played Tony. There was I want to track down more of that in West Side Story.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Since we laid it on thick for Jeremy Jordan, did you have Anna Kendrick thoughts?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So I like Anna Kendrick. I don't love Anna Kendrick. I don't know why. I kind of initially did, and then I started to feel like maybe not fatigue of her, but just like I don't know. I kept waiting for her to like bring it to a new level.
Like in this movie or in general?
Just in general. Because I was pretty early on the Anna Kendrick hype train. I saw her in Up in the Air, and I was like, that actress, it wasn't quite like seeing Emma Stone in Superbad where she just like knocked my socks off. But it was like, I think she's got something there. And then she started showing up as the lead because she was a supporter in Up in the Air, which is like this, it's a kind of romantic comedy, romantic drama starring George Clooney. But she plays a supporting role. She's actually not really a love interest, but she's like, I mean, there's a little bit of sparks with him. But in general, like she's just kind of like a foil to him.
Mm-hmm.
But she's been in a lot of stuff. And she's like a very talented singer here. I mean, in general, she's a very talented singer. I think like the best use of her has kind of been the Trolls franchise because she gets to be like have this sort of sunny personality, but also sing a whole lot. Because she comes off as very sunny on screen. Like she's got a cheerfulness about her, like almost not quite whimsy, but I think that was kind of weaponized in the other one that we saw where they kind of made her flighty, like her bubbliness, like masked a lack of concrete responsibility, etc.
Right. She it was like a manic pixie dream girl, but dealing mostly with the chaos in the wake. Like the people have to pick up the pieces after the manic pixie dream girl blows through. I like Anna Kendrick. She is a good singer. Good when she shows up in musicals. She was in the Into the Woods movie. She was Cinderella in that. She's in Scott Pilgrim as the sister of Scott Pilgrim. And broadly, I like when she shows up in movies. Not the best track record when she's been on the podcast because it was just that one other movie that I ended up not liking. But I think she's cute. I don't know. She has a unusual look, kind of. She's got a kind of a big pointy nose. But I think she is generally good. Generally positive response from me when I see her.
Yeah. And I think if there had been an ecosystem with like a lot more movie musicals, she would have been an even bigger star because that's kind of part of her talent is she's a very strong vocalist, but also like a very strong actress, and has kind of this distinct bubbly presence. So I feel like, I don't know. I just kind of like, what's the perfect Anna Kendrick project? I don't know. Maybe Pitch Perfect. Like that might've been her biggest one. I think that also did a good job of leveraging both her singing ability, but like her charm. So maybe maybe Pitch Perfect is like the ideal Anna Kendrick vehicle. Have you seen those ones, Brian?
I think I saw Pitch Perfect 2.
Okay. I saw the first one. The first one's pretty good. Isn't like one of them have like a spy conspiracy or something wild in that? Maybe the third one. I'm not sure.
Possibly. So in 2015, I had a movie pass that I saw everything that was at the theater I had the pass for. And so I saw way more movies that year that were contemporary than I normally see in a year. So I saw Pitch Perfect 2. I saw many things. One of which, I don't know, I think we just said, oh, no, Benjamin Button was earlier than that. But I don't know. I saw a lot of things. There was a movie that year, it was called like The Age of Adeline, about a woman who doesn't age.
Isn't that Blake Lively?
Possibly. She like gets struck by lightning or frozen in ice or something, and then it like stops her aging somehow. So it was another one of them, what if aging worked differently than it does for everyone else on the planet movies.
One more Anna Kendrick thought is last year she had her directorial debut. I say last year, it's 2024, which was last year until 2 days ago. But I thought that it was actually very well directed. It's a thriller about a serial killer. And it's actually a pretty interesting premise, although I ended up kind of medium on the screenplay. I gave it a 5, a good, when I wrote a review of it, a capsule review. But it's called Woman of the Hour, and it's about this real life serial killer who appeared on, I think, the Dating Show, one of those like TV romance novelty things that were big in the 70s and 80s. And the Anna Kendrick character gets paired with the serial killer. And it becomes pretty obvious to us, knowing that he's a serial killer, that he is trying to lure her into a murder situation. And she only barely makes it out, is the gist of it. But it's also like structured with flashing both backwards and forwards about like when he starts being a serial killer and then when he ultimately gets caught. And it just kind of ended up feeling like the main episode was kind of inconsequential. Like either just do the main episode or, I don't know, find some other way around it. But I thought Anna Kendrick's direction was really good. There's a few really tense scenes in it. And so I'll be curious if she does some more directing in the future. Okay. The last 5 years. So it opens with Anna Kendrick singing about how she has broken up with Jamie, will not be together with Jamie. I think the song is called Still Hurting.
All right, so she opens this envelope that's a announcement that Jamie has left her. So it was him making the decision. Dear baby, welcome to Dumpsville. Population U.
It's the gist of it.
And her pining for a guy named Jamie, who we haven't seen. I thought that was a silly name to put so much emphasis on. I don't know. I've seen memes lately, Instagram reels or repurposed TikToks of imagine that you're had your heart broken by a guy named Josh or a guy named Keith.
One of our friends, Nate, used to go by the name of Grant, and he sent me a tweet one time that was this. So this was obviously not my friend saying it. It was a tweet that somebody else had done. It said, "I just met my friend's baby named Grant. Who would name their baby Grant? Like this baby's going to start doing my taxes or something for me." Anyways, where was I? Oh, yeah. So one thing that occurred to me fairly early and then kind of bugged me the rest of the movie is that we talked a medium amount about this on the Sweeney Todd episode, which is how stage and film are like inherently different media. And the medium of stage inherently has an abstraction to it, where you're not witnessing a full reality. And so you have to use your imagination to imagine the reality surrounding it. And I think I imagine the stage musical is more subjective from the character's perspective. More, we're seeing the reality almost warped through their vision. And I did not get that sensation very much in the movie. In the movie, we get a little bit of like, I'm thinking about things differently, but not much of like, I'm viewing the entire world differently than the other person is.
Yeah, I agree. From what I read, which is Wikipedia, that's always the starting point is Wikipedia, but it said that on the stage, it's often that only one actor is actually there singing the song, and here the other person is present most of the time, but it's only the one person singing in their little bubble in time, which means that you get, a 5-minute stretch where the other person is looking at them. And like, it's kind of like if you've ever seen edits of Wonder Years where they take out Fred Savage's monologue or Friends where they take out the laugh track. It's like the person just has to stand there and wait. They got a moment in time, like an extended batch of time where they just got to be there and not saying or singing anything.
Right. It's harder to do that in film. It looks weirder.
Yeah. Like, I went and saw The Nutcracker for the first time, a ballet of The Nutcracker. And the main character is Clara, this girl, but the whole show kind of exists just to be a review of dancers come out and do dances. And so there's a variety of dances. It's like some do the Turkish dance, and some do the flower dance, and some do the Chinese dance. But Clara has to sit there as though she's entered this like fantasy realm and they're doing the dances for her. So she's got to sit on a chair and like take it in and be the audience, but also be an actor. And it's like, this would be hard to do. I wouldn't want to have this responsibility. It's like, does she even really need to be there on the stage?
Right, because you need to be like on and still and not call attention to yourself. But like if anyone looks at you, they believe that you're soaking it in as well.
It reminded me of when we talked about Plan 9 from Outer Space, and they're like listening to the radio broadcast. And you pointed out the awkwardness of act like you're listening to something.
So then we hop back in time. So the timeline that we get here is 2014 back to 2009. And so there's like a couple of times it kind of conveniently shows something that has the year until we kind of get the pattern. It's like, oh, okay, so we're doing, this is the past, this is the present. Okay, gotcha. But obviously the original, if it was back in 2001 or whatever, would not have been 2009 to 2014.
Right. No iPhones. Nobody had iPhone face in the original production.
And I read that they changed a few references to like names. There's a couple of times they call it actors or stores or stuff, and they had to change it. One was like Borders being the place where everybody gets books. And by 2014, Borders was no more. So they replaced it with Target instead of Borders. Like I saw your book with everybody looking at it in Target. And I think in the original, it was everybody looking at it in Borders. So
Gotcha.
R.I.P. Borders. But in the first scene we get from Jamie is like the beginning of their relationship. And they've just met. He's like an aspiring writer who's a student, and she's an aspiring actress who's just kind of like getting auditions and stuff. So again, definitely thinking of La La Land with Emma Stone when she's like at her most ambitious and inspired fairly early in the film, like going to these auditions. One clip that I think of sometimes is like, no, I forget the name of the guy. It's like, you be tripping. Emma Stone saying that directly to the camera, and then it reverse cuts and it's like the audition team.
I think it was Jamal.
No, Jamal, you be tripping, or something like that. And I don't know. That's a good movie, La La Land.
Yeah, love La La Land. Was thinking of it a lot here because you get the scenes of auditions where it's, 50 people who look exactly like you.
And the agent doesn't really care too much about you when you're on the phone with them, and yeah, stuff like that. So here, there's a very odd undercurrent to when they're first meeting, because this whole song is about how Jamie is excited that he is dating someone who isn't Jewish. And it's like the first time he's dated someone who isn't Jewish. And how his family doesn't care who he dates so long as she's Jewish, but she isn't that. Just kind of an odd way to introduce their like the bright love of their romance.
Yeah.
Also, I guess Jeremy Jordan looks kind of Jewish, but the hallmark that he appeared in was actually a Hanukkah love story instead of a Christmas love story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know if he actually was or wasn't, but what this song told me, in addition to this kind of weird commodification, is that this must be autobiographical.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is a Jewish guy who wrote a musical, which is kind of a stereotype in and of itself. And yeah, that this character is him. This is the writer of the musical. And then I was thinking, as the whole rest of the story unfolded, it's like, it's interesting that he is depicting himself this way and depicting the wife the way he depicts the wife.
Yeah, so I guess we can go ahead and say it now. I, in general, found the Anna Kendrick character much more sympathetic. I mean, she's obviously not perfect. I don't really see how you could watch this movie and find Jamie more sympathetic.
Oh, yeah, for sure. She's the good guy, he's the bad guy.
But I like, ostensibly, I feel like this could have been a little bit more ambiguous. Like, I feel like there could have been complicating factors. And maybe on the stage where it's more subjective, this could have worked better. I don't know. But, like, how could you watch this movie and side with the Jeremy Jordan character, Jamie? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, same page.
So we're kind of going back and forth. And then we saw their breakup. And part of when she broke up in that first scene is she took off her wedding ring. So we learned that they're married. And then she took off some other jewelry too. And it's like a recurring motif throughout the movie that he gives her a piece of jewelry. And so she gets more and more jewelry on her hands. It's a nice little visual representation of like the connection and baggage that you build with someone. And then at the end, she takes it all off, except it's the beginning.
And also it shows that more time has passed if you got more jewelry that is gradually acquired. It's like, you know, if an actor has to play the character at multiple times in their life, it's like, well, he's got to be older now, so maybe you'd better grow a mustache.
Right.
It's like, what can be a visual signifier that time has passed when really you shot it over, you know, a month or two?
Great point. Yeah, yeah. But then the next scene that we see is like a little bit before the breakup, and she has moved to Ohio doing what this was like a new term to me, but both the film page and the play page on Wikipedia blue linked to summer stock theater. So apparently what summer stock theater is, and I'm not a big theater head. I was never like in drama or anything like that. So there's a lot of like tropes and just vernacular and stuff that is I'm not familiar with. But apparently what summer stock theater is like a stage production at smaller theaters set during the summer where they like bring in talent to come put the show on. So it's kind of like slumming it a little bit if you're an aspiring actress.
Right.
It's like going out to these more, you're not in New York City, you're in the suburbs of Ohio.
Yes, this is portrayed as purgatory. It had me thinking of the Simpsons episode where they go to Branson, Missouri, and they're seeing the stage show in Branson, Missouri, where it's got Ray J. Johnson. He says, "Just don't call me washed up, because I do 5 shows a day."
What it had me thinking of was Party Down. At the end of season 1 of Party Down, the Lizzie Kaplan character, who's a comedian who just over and over thinks she's about to get her break, but isn't, gets invited to do stand-up on a cruise for a couple of months. And she's like, I need to do something, so I need to go do this. And then she leaves the Adam Scott character. And I've known, or heard of at least through my kids do dance through their dance studio. Like some of their instructors during summers go do like dance performances somewhere. Like one did a cruise. I think it was last summer or something like that. So I think, yeah, if you're not in like, you know, everybody wants it to be New York or LA, but there are people who want to see shows all throughout the world. So,
yeah, I was just having a whole rush of thoughts throughout this movie on the topic of what does success look like? How do you know when you're successful? And the question of what does it mean to be better at art than someone? Like, is that a concrete reality? Is there a score gauge that you can look at? And it's like, on the one hand, no, it's subjective, but on the other hand, you can kind of tell. And that's like a complicated idea. And I've definitely thought about that being at art school these last couple years doing this MFA program. And it's like, what did you say? You've said it a couple times this past year of like, they got the stuff. Who's got the stuff? And like, what is the nature of training versus inborn talent? I was also thinking of the movie Monsters University.
okay.
For Christmas, I picked up the 3D Blu-ray of Monsters, Inc., which I guess they did a 3D re-release in 2013 when they made Monsters University. But if you go and watch Monsters University, it's the prequel to Monsters, Inc., and the storyline is it's Mike and Sully in college, and Mike works really hard and he studies really hard and he's got this drive, but he's not scary. And Sully, though, he's from this legacy scare family and he's just got the scare gene, but he doesn't apply himself. And where it ends in the story is they need each other. But this idea that no matter how hard Mike works, he's never going to be a scary guy. So unless some world-shattering energy paradigm shift happens, he's not the go-to dynamo.
And this is kind of a contrast to what you normally see in these kids' movies, which is that follow your dreams. you can do anything you set your heart to do if you work hard enough and believe in yourself, which Mike can't. He can't be scary, you know? I could never be a Broadway star because I can't sing as well as Jeremy Jordan. Not that I particularly want to. Although, I guess I'll toss in here now, Brian. Like the past month, I've been jotting notes for writing my own musical. I don't really know how to write music, so that's kind of a problem. But the premise that I've been working on is, I'm sure this is like pulling from things very blatantly, but this high schooler try-hard drama kid writes and puts on a musical version of Casablanca to try and cast the girl that he has a crush on opposite him to get her to fall in love with him. So that it would be a mix of diegetic and non-diegetic music. Some of it like from the musical itself, but some of it also just him or in the other characters singing.
Cool. So I'll say I've always wanted to write a musical. I could definitely do the lyrics, but I also am not much of a composer. Ben, my friend, does some composing, and I did for episode 50 of Gauntlet, a Gauntlet musical that was rudimentary, but he did the composing, I did the lyrics, so that's definitely an ambition that I've had. I've also always had a respect for actors, and like maybe aspirations of doing some acting, but I don't know. It's tough. It definitely feels better to be on the other side of the table at the audition.
Mm.
Be the one making the choice. I'm gonna be throwing out a lot of like dating app philosophy buzzwords, but be the chooser, not the chosen. When you have the opportunity to do the choosing, that's where you want to be. That's where you got the leverage.
Yeah, and I think this movie made me feel a lot of things. Like I really love doing creative things, but I've always set up my life such that my personal success is not tied to whether I achieve those creative ambitions. Like I write movie reviews for fun. I write fiction for fun, but like I've never tried to make it as those things as like a professional thing. It's always been supplementary to my remunerative career as a software developer, you know, and like always been a night job and stuff I do in between taking care of my family. But like, I can just imagine the intensity and the highs and the lows. Like I feel highs and lows when I have success and failure in the things that I do. And that's just, like I said, just what I'm doing for fun in my spare hours. Like imagine you were trying to make it, like your whole life was built around it. And I will say this musical does a good job of making you feel some of that pain of that high and low. Not quite as much as La La Land did, but I still think this does a pretty good job of that.
I was also thinking of Pam's arc on The Office, because Pam does this where she kind of has muted dreams, like underneath the surface dreams of, oh, one day maybe pursue art. And then Jim is like, well, you should do that. You should go to art school. And she does. And then it doesn't actually end up going anywhere. She's like, I'm not devoted enough to this, or perhaps talented enough at this for this to change my life. And like, I have a niche carved out for myself here at the paper company, and I'm going to return to that. And like, in one way that's a defeat, in another it's an acceptance, and it's just a life. It is a life that has been built that has possibilities that maybe don't lie along this other path.
Yeah. I mean, another thing depicted by both this movie and La La Land pretty well is also that when you have two people who are like creatives who devoted their life to pursuing a dream, a creative dream, and you get inequalities in the levels of success. Like at the beginning, it's good because neither of them have made it in really any sense. And they're both grinding, but happy to be grinding. And they value that in each other to some extent. La La Land bears this out a little bit more clearly than the last 5 years, but you still kind of get it here. That like, okay, early on, when neither have made it, it's easy for the passion to kind of overflow into the romance. The creative and the creative pursuits and the romantic pursuits dovetail perfectly. And then as time goes on, all of that wears down. The romance becomes harder. You become either uninspired because you fail over and over and over again in your creative pursuits, or, you know, here, basically the second Jamie scene is that Jamie gets a call from a publisher that, you know, he's essentially landed the lotto ticket. It's like his novel was pulled out of the slush pile and they're like, this is great, we want to publish you, which is like, it happens, you know, 1 in a million times, but it's happening to him. And meanwhile, Anna Kendrick's character is just constantly going to audition, failing, not getting the part over and over and over again. So now he's got this success, but it was kind of like given to him easily, you know?
Right, he fell ass backward into wealth, as I think gets said about Kramer at one point in Seinfeld.
And then she's just grinding and grinding. And so you kind of have this awkward thing where, like, I do feel like there are portions of this that do portray both sides at least a little bit sympathetically, because he's like, I believe in you. You just got to keep pushing. You just got to stay true to yourself and you get your break. And she's like, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm working hard and you just kind of lucked into success. And it's like, yeah, I mean, both are kind of true. It's like, it's frustrating for her and it's frustrating for him because he's like trying to enjoy that success, the thing that he wanted, he got. But like the Kathy character, the Anna Kendrick character is maybe not bringing him down, but like bringing him back to earth in a difficult way for him because he's trying to make the most of this, his dream, but also like the woman that he loves is struggling. So like, how do you have both of those thoughts in your brain at the same time, you know?
Yeah. And so my favorite song in the whole show is one of these moments when he's hyping her up and he sings this song about a tailor, like an old tailor who's lived his life and hasn't realized his dreams, and then this magical clock grants him the ability to go backwards and live his life again and fulfill his creative ambitions. And this is set at Christmas, and he says, look, I'm successful, Jamie says, and so I've got some money to throw around, and so let me support you. You can depend on me, and you can go and chase the acting thing more in earnest, go to more auditions. And this is maybe partially because of she's going backwards. It's like, hasn't she already been going to auditions? Hasn't she been? But I guess that's the previous scene of her. We saw that she was going to a whole bunch of auditions, and it was because he told her go to auditions. But my thought was, well, she's like beaten down at this point because she's been meeting all these unsuccessful auditions. And then his message is, well, how about you go to more auditions? I agree. And it's like, maybe the real decision is take a break for a little bit and like appreciate other aspects of life.
Yeah, I think you're right that this got kind of muddled, but I also think you're right that this song was really fun.
And it was like romantic and funny and creative, and I like this moment. And I mean, I think this is the moment where it's most evocative of, oh, okay, maybe this is why they're doing the weird shit with the time.
And although I do think it muddles a little bit there too, because exactly what you said, it's like, it should be the moment where she goes all in on herself, but we've already seen her so worn down from going in on herself that it doesn't feel inspirational. And maybe that ambivalence is kind of the point of it too, but I did feel like the impact was kind of odd of that moment. So this film is directed, we haven't said yet, this film was directed by a guy named Richard LaGravenese, I think is how you pronounce it, LaGravenese. And I read a little bit about this guy. So interestingly, his arc is a little bit like the Jeremy Jordan character in this. So he basically wrote on spec, which means just of his own volition, a script that ended up becoming The Fisher King, directed by Terry Gilliam, which I have not seen. But he was in his 20s. He just wrote the script, and he got Terry Gilliam to buy it, to make it, and he got an Oscar nomination for it. So again, it was like, we've talked about wunderkinds before, like these people that just kind of come in and have immediate success. And he was a little bit of that. And he's stayed productive since. He's directed a little bit. He's written a lot. He adapted The Bridges of Madison County. It's probably his most seen movie. That one he wrote, but this one he directed. So I will say, I don't think it's a very well directed movie in general. there's just a lot of like, I don't know. It's if you not to keep bringing it back to La La Land, but La La Land is just so visionary in the way that it looks with the colors and the framing and the long takes, and then this just feels like someone who has seen and likes movies trying to make a movie. You know, like he doesn't really turn it into anything special. It's not like broken in any visual way. He uses a lot of handheld cam, which kind of threw me off a little bit. It doesn't, I guess that kind of aligns with the intimacy of it.
Yeah, and just to say, La La Land had a budget of $30 million. This had a budget of $2 million. So a lot of the time you're just in a room.
That's true. The budget makes a big difference too. But yes. But the reason I bring this up is because the one number that really worked for me visually is the one you were talking about. It's like the Shmuel, or how do you say that word?
Yeah, Shmuel.
Something like that. Because basically I think it's set at Christmas or the holidays, and he's like putting up lights and simultaneously as he's bringing the story to life. And then it kind of ends with this little mise en scène of him in this sort of scene that's illuminated by the Christmas lights that kind of represents what he's been singing about. And I was like, oh, this is actually kind of like cleverly assembled here. The story doesn't really have too much more to it than what we've said. Basically, it kind of just all falls out from there. Like she's constantly grinding and not really having success, and he's constantly having success, and it's like sometimes like deferring his time with her and like savoring in the attention from his attractive young editor and the receptionist and these big lavish parties that they're throwing in his honor for him to hobnob with big publishing types, and she just wants time with him to make it feel like it's them against the world. But he's like, well, I've conquered the world. I've made it. This is what I should be doing. And I wish it was a little more sympathetic towards him, because you're like, dude, just like hang out with your wife, your lover.
Yeah, he's such a heel. He's really detestable because, so the one moment that they both sing where they're at the same moment in time, because it's the dead middle of the film, is they get married. They get engaged and they get married. And then because Jamie's moving forward, his next scene is he's like immediately talking about, oh, the ball and chain, take my wife, please.
And, I think there's something to be said for like, it's hard to have commitment when the world is your oyster, to have devoted your life to something when everything is at your fingertips. And I think there's a line in there. He said, I wish every woman except my wife looked like Mr. Ed, the talking horse, because then it would be so much easier to be drawn back to her, which is not like, I have a little bit of empathy, but you're right that it's like, it's just all of this just makes you feel sad for Anna Kendrick and like, come on, dude, towards Jeremy Jordan.
Yeah, I felt bad for her. Couple complicating things just a little bit is I think humility would behoove both of them. Like, I think they could both afford to be a little more humble. Anna Kendrick gets a song towards the end, which is towards the beginning, because she's moving backwards. It's late in the movie's runtime, but it's early in their relationship, where she's singing about how because she's pursuing art, she is hopeful that she will escape the small town life. And it's like, I'm going to be better than my high school peers. And she kind of has that attitude also when we see her doing the summer stock. She's like, this is a temporary thing. Eventually, I'm going to be better than this. And she's like dunking on all her colleagues. Like,
right.
All these people, all these directionless, derelict people, but I'm not like that. I'm not one of them. But you are.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And that's the point where the ambivalence in the story comes. There's another moment where basically Jamie is kind of singing to Kathy about like, you gotta, like, I'll help you, I'll support you, we'll do this. But like, she's just had a bad day, bad auditions, and she just like, basically he says, are you sure that like your anger right now is not because you're jealous of me and my success? Which she is, like, she very clearly is. But also you don't say that.
Right.
And she storms out on him.
Yeah, and I think his most cutting line is, and like everything pauses for a moment because of how icy it was, but he says, I should have written it down. The gist is, I refuse to fail just because you can't succeed. Or I won't lose just because you can't win.
Brutal. There are moments, a couple in there, where you're like, you can see why he's frustrated, but it doesn't ultimately make him heroic at all, I would say. One interesting thing about this play I read is that the original guy who wrote it, the original play by Jason Robert Brown, he got sued by his ex-wife because it was too close to their actual relationship. I mean, he's a writer, of course. And she's an actress, and he's Jewish and she's Catholic. And apparently in like the very first version of the story, it more played up the fact that she was Irish Catholic, the Kathy character. And then that kind of got written out of it when he revised it in the wake of getting sued for, because apparently like some non-disparagement clause in their divorce or something like that. And so he made it less resemble his ex-wife, some changing a couple lines. But I thought that was kind of interesting too, because yeah, it doesn't make you like the writer type in this, the male lead in this. And then the middle point, so it actually is the middle of the film. So compare that to Memento, where the middle point happens at the end of the film. But here the middle point, because we actually have two storylines that X, like a crisscross in the middle, is a duet where they get married. Both have hope in their life, but it's a little different from at the beginning, because like Anna Kendrick's like, you've sort of had your luck and we'll work through this together and I'll have my success too. And he's like, I'll be here for you no matter what happens, no matter where my career goes, I will always stand by you. And that does not end up true.
Yeah, like that could have been a good arrangement, but he doesn't hold that up.
Yeah, because basically where this turns towards the end is we see him singing like, I feel like this reveal could have been a lot stronger, but basically we see him waking up one day, again, fairly late in the relationship. And he's like, oh, it's so nice to be waking up next to you. I'm so happy to be here with you, and kissing the cheek. And then the woman sits up, and it's not Anna Kendrick. It's the editor, receptionist, or like some other attractive person in his literary life. And then we get a montage of his infidelity with various attractive women. So we see that he is indeed, as you said, a heel, a cad. And I guess the idea is that like we've kind of seen him go to his breaking point in his relationship with his wife, with Anna Kendrick, but I didn't really feel that was, I mean, obviously that's not ever justifiable, but like it didn't feel like he had been so far driven away by his wife that like that was a reasonable, sympathetic thing to do.
Yeah, it felt abrupt. It's almost cartoonish because there's multiple women like dissolving in and out of the shot. Like it's an absolute revolving door.
And it ends with Jeremy Jordan's character writing the letter that we see Anna Kendrick open at the beginning about their relationship dissolving, their relationship being completely over. But then also Anna Kendrick excitedly leaving her first date with him. So they've kind of reversed what it was in the beginning, where she was sad and he was at the beginning of the relationship. And they kind of mirrored it in an interesting way.
Yeah, because they say goodbye to each other, and now, unlike all the other vignettes, all the other scenes, they're in separate time bubbles. It's like the Jamie from the end of the relationship chronologically is interacting with the Kathy from the beginning of the relationship chronologically. They're like occupying the same space even though they're in separate times.
And that's the last 5 years. Very interesting movie and story. I think you'll gather, I don't think it's a 100% success, like a knock it out of the park success, but it's interesting, and I like the two leads. I enjoyed having them because they're singing nonstop and they're both good vocalists. That's one way it's better than La La Land. Is I think both these singers are better than Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling are.
Oh, good call. And actually, now that I think about it, if they had Jamie become successful in literary work and they lived together for 5 years and they got married, I would think that they would move. But they're in her like little townhouse the whole time, and it's probably just so that this ending can happen.
Yeah, I mean, but also like if she's going to be doing auditions, and so now he's like hobnobbing with all the literary people all the time because he's around. But you're right. Like if they could have moved to like Montana or something like that, if it wasn't for her, the fact that she needed to keep going to auditions, or yes, as the story demanded, that they be in the same townhouse the whole time.
Right.
But I was glad to finally catch up with it because I mentioned I've been watching a lot of these Broadway videos. It's become, I'll like put one on one screen, and then as I'm doing my work in the other, just like show tunes to kind of keep me cheery throughout the day. It's been kind of weird. Like I never really listened to show tunes that much growing up, but I've liked them a lot more the past few years, and they just I've learned about some musicals that way and stuff, and some Broadway performers, seeing them in these medleys and stuff. So, and as mentioned, Jeremy Jordan was one such discovery, and so here we are with the last 5 years, Brian. But that's really all I have to say about this movie. Anything you want to add before we rate?
Well, I listen to lots of show tunes. I kind of always have. Definitely keep me posted about this musical you got brewing, Dan, because I may be able to contribute. We can see. But this movie, as it was going along, it kind of grew on me. I was more invested by the end, and just a rush of thoughts about different things, especially regarding like how does one determine one's success in a creative field? Like, why are you doing it? How do you know you've made it? What if you suspect you're never going to make it? What do you do then? And so I just wanted to shout out a couple things that are in my head. I just recently saw the Anaconda reboot that's brand new in theaters. Have you heard anything about this?
I only know a little bit about it. It's kind of got a meta twist, right?
Yes. So the hook, I feel like it owes a little bit to Tropic Thunder, but maybe that's just because Jack Black is in both. But it's Jack Black and Paul Rudd and Steve Zahn also from That Thing You Do.
Oh, I love Steve Zahn.
And they are these guys who made films when they were kids. Like they grew up together and they made films when they were kids. And Jack Black was the writer-director, and Steve Zahn was the cameraman, and Paul Rudd was the actor. And then, like, after high school, Paul Rudd went to Los Angeles and is pursuing acting. So he's, like, actually making a go of it, but he's struggling and getting these little bit parts. Meanwhile, Steve Zahn and Jack Black stayed in their hometown and they're wedding videographers, but Jack Black still believes that he's a filmmaker. And it's like, you're not a filmmaker, you're a videographer. And this, yeah, so all these navel-gazy, like, struggling filmmaker jokes. And I really liked it, because then the verdict that they make is Paul Rudd comes back to the hometown and he's like, we had a dream, Jack Black. You said you would come with me and we would make movies together. So look, I've got some money saved up and I've purchased the rights to Anaconda because it was just lying there as an IP. And look, I've got this little bit of money. Let's go to the jungle and make an Anaconda movie. And then they end up actually, encountering a real dangerous anaconda. But it's primarily a comedy. And the reason that I liked it was this meta idea of being indie filmmaker. And so I thought it was funny. I thought it was well done, and more refreshing than a usual legacy reboot thing that is happening all the time now.
Yeah, I've come to realize that like I like meta stories. I feel like there's a little bit of a reputation that it's I'm 14 and this is deep type stuff. Like it makes you feel smart because it's layered and referring on itself, but I tend to like meta jokes and meta stories.
But yeah, I mean, I love movies like this. Galaxy Quest, Tropic Thunder.
Have you seen Adaptation?
What happens in that one?
I haven't seen it, but I mean, I think it's kind of like this.
Okay. At first, I thought you said Audition, which is a notorious, like a weird, intense torture film. But no, you said Adaptation.
Yes. No, not Audition, Adaptation. It's by Spike Jonze, who did Her and Where the Wild Things Are.
Oh, okay. I did have one other thing I wanted to pay lip service to, which is that I don't know if you have specific YouTubers that you follow, people who make YouTube content, but one presenter that I'm really into, who I follow pretty regularly, is the Carpetbagger, who is this guy who his gimmick is he's kind of on a perpetual road trip. And every day he'll go and he'll stop at a different roadside attraction, some big, some small, and he'll do a little video about here's what I did today, and then he'll put that out into the world. And so he is about 10 years older than I am. Like, I don't know, 45. And he was helped in his YouTube career by this other vlogger named Adam the Woo. And Adam the Woo has a very similar style in that he would just walk around with his camera. He did a lot of theme park content, but it's just like, here I am today, drinking my coffee, going to Disney. And really what made him blow up was that he went to some abandoned buildings and like kind of trespassed and did a little video log about that. But then after his following blew up, he's like a nice guy and a charming guy, and people kind of stayed following him to just see what he was up to day to day. And then in the last year or so, Adam the Woo made more of an effort to travel internationally. He went to Paris, he went to Rome, places that he'd never been before because he was turning 50. And like kind of a midlife crisis thing. He never really had a family. He lived in his car for a while doing these vlogs. But he was early on the scene doing this vlog content and inspired and helped these other people who were doing it, like the Carpetbagger. And then, actually, while we were recording the Grinch episode, Dan, last week, I got a notification on my phone from one of these theme park vlog guys that Adam the Woo had died overnight at 51 years old. It sounds like it was some kind of heart attack or blood clot or aneurysm, something that happened all of a sudden. But it's like some other vlogger showed up to his house to meet him for the video the next day, and he was dead inside the house. And so it can happen very suddenly. And then I've been watching this past week, because it's just been a week, the Carpetbagger grappling with this and talking about that Adam the Woo, because of giving him this exposure, kind of gave him the life that he has. And it's like, I wouldn't have the success that I do or the way of life that I do if not for my friend. And this idea that success looks different for different people, and people climb to different levels of acclaim and acknowledgement, and that even these people who are just walking around with a camera on a stick, it's like that can be a life if you manage to crack through. Like, if you break through, this is a way that you can make a living in this day and age, in this media environment. And so I've just really been thinking about this last week, and it's like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's like, you got to do something. You got to pursue something. And so some of the sound bites from the Carpetbagger talking about Adam the Woo is, he said that what he learned from Adam the Woo was that you got to bet on yourself. It's like, you got to, because who else is going to bet on you? It's like, you have to back yourself up. You have to be your own promoter. And that both the Carpetbagger and Adam the Woo said they had experienced social anxiety. Like, off camera, they're introverts, but that Adam the Woo basically taught the Carpetbagger not to be afraid of the camera. It's like, just show up as you. This is a window into your life. And it's like, don't be afraid to be who you are. So I was thinking about that watching this movie. And it's like, whether or not it's giving you the big bucks, it's like, you got to be authentic. You got to have some degree of confidence in your brand.
Well said, and thank you for sharing that. It's always hard. I mean, my dad died in a similar way just a couple years ago, so I know how shocking and difficult that can be for sure. It's hard. But Yeah, I mean, grappling with success, that's kind of a theme of this movie, and like defining that. I mean, even more so La La Land, like how do you define what is successful? What comes after you've done something, and how do you view that as an ongoing success? And so it's definitely something that's changed in the 21st century. So, but I think now we will rate Brian. So is it good is our signature section where we each give the movie a rating on our 8-point goodness scale, ranging from very not good, which is a 1 out of 8, to our masterpiece rating toward a good. So Brian, is The Last 5 Years good?
So this was tough because I felt different things at different times. There were moments, especially early on, that I felt pretty checked out and confused also because of this complicated, convoluted structure. Also, the way that the music is like very talky. You might have said impressionistic. I think of it as like internal. So it's almost like the songs that are happening are thoughts in the people's heads. And that's like how it's explained, that it's not really busting out into song. It's like, this is what I'm thinking about. I didn't find it very tuneful. Like, I don't remember any of these tunes. And that also drove home for me that this must have been really hard for these actors and singers. Like, they really had to work hard. And it's virtuosic. And the song that really stuck out to me in this regard was Anna Kendrick is doing an audition, and then she's singing the song that she's auditioning with, but she's also singing what's going through her head, like her internal monologue while she's singing this song. And so it's like a song and a half that's kind of eating itself like an Ouroboros. And this would have been so hard to do. And she's like talking about how the person at the audition table is ignoring her, looking at his phone like in La La Land. And I guess what it comes down to is I just kept thinking about La La Land and how much I like La La Land. And I believe in our discussion subsequently, Dan's bumped up La La Land to an 8. I gave it a 6 because as good as the ending was, it bugged me that... Well, go back to our episode for the full story of La La Land, but it's like, I didn't think the counterfactuals presented in that fantasy sequence at the end represented a reality that had any chance of happening. And you didn't even need that fantastical alternate path, because all that needed to change was, I think Ryan Gosling should have gone to France. I don't really see any good reason that he didn't. He was very married to that one location for the jazz club, and I thought that was stupid because he even says Paris has good jazz. This is not the La La Land episode. Sorry to ramble. I have many, many thoughts about La La Land. It's a great movie. It's an exceptional movie. This movie is less exceptional. It's cheaper. It's flatter. It's just thinner and more basic. I like the central performances. This were strong actors that they picked. I'm going to land at a 4. I was ready to give it a 5. Maybe it deserves a 5. I felt things strongly, especially towards the end. It really had me thinking. But as a musical, it's not one of my favorites. I'm going to give it a good-ish 4 out of 8. Where are you at, Dan?
Definitely some overlapping thoughts. It's interesting that you said you liked the end more than the beginning, because for me it was the opposite. Is I liked at the beginning when it was kind of, we were seeing things for the first time, and it was like, oh, here it's the end and they're very sad. Oh, here it's the beginning and they're very happy. Oh, here he's getting his breakthrough. She's struggling. I thought that was a little more interesting. And yes, impressionistic, maybe not the music itself, but like the storytelling experience of like, here's a moment in our love life. Here's a moment in our love life. And that's something really explored in 500 Days of Summer. But I thought that worked pretty well. And then it started to feel kind of repetitive as the movie went on. Didn't really get too much deeper where it really should have. Maybe I'm not giving it enough credit, but... And like, I agree, as a filmmaking specimen, it's unexceptional. It's very flat. And I think some of what you're talking about is what I brought up in Sweeney Todd, where if something's sung through and sung all the way through, the feeling of like numbers popping gets lost, although you get like more of an emotional scope of the entire thing. So it kind of goes a little bit both ways. I did kind of wonder if this would have been better if it had been less sung through, like we would have gotten a little more of the characters just interacting with each other and felt that chemistry a little bit more. But I think the idea is we're seeing it through their eyes, which is hard to do on screen and might have worked better on stage. That said, I just thought it was kind of an interesting and unique, and I just think there should be more musicals that are trying stuff. And I did have ultimately a good time, and I liked it. So I'm going to give this a lower end good, but still a good, a 5 out of 8, soft thumbs up. I really like Anna Kendrick here, and I like seeing Jeremy Jordan on screen. He's not a great actor per se, but for what he needs to do here, he's excellent, and he's a terrific singer. And yeah, so I got about what I was expecting and hoping for. Didn't subvert or surprise my expectations too much, but it didn't really disappoint me. And I think it got more negative reviews than positive reviews, but I found it pretty satisfying and interesting and rich, if flawed and uneven. So last 5 years, there aren't enough live action musicals out there that really put the music all on the line like this does. So I just appreciated that. Brian, what are we going to be watching next week?
Okay. So we came not too far apart on that movie. We felt pretty similarly. For next week, on the topic of someone that we unexpectedly lost suddenly, I wanted to talk about a Rob Reiner film. So we're going to be covering The Princess Bride from 1987, and I believe we're going to be joined by a guest.
Cool. This should be fun then, Brian. I am looking forward to talking Reiner and The Princess Bride, and obviously the tragedy that occurred around Reiner. So thank you, Brian. Thank you, listeners. And we'll see you next week.
As we delve further into 2026, welcome to the new year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Brian. Happy New Year, listeners. Find us on thegoodsfilmpodcast.com. Bye, everyone.